All right. Go ahead and get started, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Chaz Saunders, and I'm an educational specialist here at Foundations Inc. So, welcome to our Beyond the Conference webinar series. Today, we have Brittany Stanton here from Foundations, and we'll be getting started shortly. But before we do, I just wanted to give you a little background information on Foundations and what we do here. So, we are a national nonprofit located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, and our mission is to improve the quality of education by building the skills of educators. So we work across the school day with after-school programs, school districts, and states to create a brighter future for every child every day. If you're interested in learning more about Foundations, you can follow us on social media. And I'll go ahead and drop the link to our site in the chat right now for you, so you can check out all the cool stuff that we're doing. Speaking of the cool stuff that we're doing, you may already know us from our signature professional learning experience, the Beyond School Hours Conference, which is held each year in February, coming up. And in 2025, we'll be in Orlando, Florida, sunny Orlando. I'm certainly in a place with chilly weather, so I can't wait. And that'll be from the 13th to the 16th of February. And we'd love to have you all as our guests. Registration's open now. I'd just like to go ahead and pass it off to Brittany, who is today's facilitator.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Like Chaz said, my name is Brittany. I am an education specialist here at Foundations, but prior to my time as part of this team, I served in a number of education settings. I started out my career as a music educator, and I taught in the K-12 setting for about 7 years in a variety of demographic locations. I started in a very kind of like suburban area. I ended my teaching part of my career in an urban area. So I've seen a lot. And then after leaving the classroom, I spent time in an out of school time program that, yes, was arts based, but also was an academic based program as well. And I started out there running all things related to programming. And by the time I left that organization, I had come to run the whole show, basically. So I've really seen a lot over the years, and I'm happy to be with y'all today to share some ideas and some tools to kind of help you break out of the box. Out of school time programs are really unique, very special because they don't have to fit into the kind of traditional model that we think of as part of the school day. And so what you do after school or in the summer or before school, whatever your OST timeframe is, to even think beyond that box as well. So some of the things we'll talk about hopefully will get you thinking in some new ways, and how we can best serve the students that we have in our programs. And so, like I said, we'll be sharing some tools with you today, but really our objectives for our time together today are to take a look at what we call possibility propositions, and to define those and talk about how we can use it to engage with youth in general, but particularly our hard to reach youth. Then we'll spend some time talking about the power of networking and building partnerships. And the tool that we'll be providing with you today is a planner to help you in your networking and partnership building efforts. And then the last thing we're going to focus on today is how we can utilize youth focus groups to address barriers to engagement. When we listen to what our students, what our youth are saying that they want or they need, and we can use that voice and choice to build a program to meet those needs and keep them engaged, then our programs can thrive. And so our toolkit that we'll be dropping in the chat for you some of these resources throughout the hour. And so they include possibility propositions, which is a series of questions that you can use to help brainstorm out-of-box ideas and solutions for engaging youth. We'll dive into that in a moment. Um, Partnership Power, which is all about networking and how you can use that networking planner tool to start to forge relationships with potential partners. And then the youth-led focus group, which is a planning and facilitation guide, which we will take a look at as well. But before we really dive into all of these tools, we want to hear from you. What are you dreaming about for your program? When you think about your program, either now or in the future, what are your dreams for it? What do you hope? So let us know in the chat box. What is it that you are dreaming about for your program? I know that whenever I was running program, we had a real square footage issue. We were growing beyond the building. And so we had to engage in a lot of dreaming about what are the possibilities for the future of our program. Do we say, no, we can't grow and stay within this little space? Or are we going to explore expansion opportunities? Are we going to build a new building? Are we going to move to a new space? Are we going to partner with local schools to be inside of their space instead of our own little community-based organization? There were so many things that we were exploring to try to address that very real square footage issue. But it was a dream, right? And so lots of people, lots of voices were tapped into to help define the direction and those dreams. We talked to the students, we talked to the families, we talked to donors. We talked to local school leaders to understand what really were the needs of the community and how was our dreaming and our hopes kind of able to support those things. Thanks for those chiming in here in the chat. We have somebody dreaming of expanding their target to include middle schoolers. So I'm assuming that you're predominantly an elementary-based program, and you're looking to expand your reach into an older age group. That's great. We also have somebody who wants to allow their children in the program to explore and provide an environment for that to happen. I love that. Here we have a dream for a program that students and staff want to be a part of after schools, to always have a growing environment. Absolutely, right? Because if they don't want to be there, they're not going to be there. We have another dreamer here who wants a safe place where students can excel both academically and socially. Yeah, absolutely. And something that really speaks to the needs of our time that we're living in, right? That it's not always just about getting that A, right? We have to learn how to get along and how to function in society, and that can happen in after school spaces. We have another dream here to grow at all of the locations. That's a great dream. I love that. So as you are dreaming, we want to think about what is possible. And so we think about these possibility propositions, right? Engaging the youth, particularly our hard to reach youth, which for you might be a geographical challenge. It might be an age group challenge. It's harder to get the older students into programs because of competing priorities. And so in really embarking on this whole thing is kind of a daring adventure, right? You don't know whether you're going to be successful, but you have to try. And with each step that you go through, you can uncover hidden gems, if you will, as you search for that treasure trove of possibilities for your programs. And so possibility propositions are really the dreams and visions of what that preferred future could look like. These possibility propositions are developed whenever we ask questions that really probe into the issues or areas that you want to make a change in your program that ultimately will engage youth, period, but particularly our hard to reach youth. And so there's 4 steps to this investigation in which participants can develop the possibility propositions. And so the first step is the investigation. And so during this phase, this investigative approach, it's a positive approach, which is going to help you as leaders dream what is possible in the future. So the first thing is to initiate that inquiry. You start by asking questions to those who are most likely to express that there is an issue in an area where you want to make change. And that, depending on the nature of your program, you might be asking students, you might be asking families, you might be asking teachers. Hopefully you're asking your staff, right? And then we're going to inquire into best practices. And best practices are, we hear that a lot, but what does that actually mean? We're going to take time in this part of the investigation to really interview our staff and identify what's working, what's being effective in your program that they're doing. We're also in this phase going to seek feedback. And so with feedback from the interviewers, the interviews that you conduct with students or families or staff, that goes hand in hand with the questions. You want to get feedback on how things are now and the impressions that folks have of the work that you're doing. And you can start to pull from all of this information themes, recurring themes, problems that you are hearing on a repeated basis, right? And this discovery means that we're looking at what is and beginning to think about what could be. And so including staff in this process is important. It's not an ivory tower, if you will, right? We are working together with all of our stakeholders. And then we're going to use this information to envision a future that is really that preferred future that we want for our program, and develop a possibility proposition to support that. And this will then link to those best practices and themes that you discovered during the investigation. And so questions you could ask, there's so many questions that you could ask. And what we'll do is we'll drop a PDF in the chat for you that lists out a lot of the questions that you can ask. These questions are not the end all be all. You can ask more. This is just a starting point for you, right? And so here we want to make sure that we're creating equitable access for these questions, whether that is an online survey to solicit the feedback in a virtual environment if you can't do it in person. If it actually is in person, like, do you have a group session where you're sitting down with a group of students and having them complete a survey form together while they're in program? Is it something you're sending home? Is it something that you're doing as a one-to-one and actually talking to students through these questions? All things that you need to consider whenever you're especially thinking about, okay, well, my program serves, second and third graders. Maybe a written survey is not the way to go for your second and third graders, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't ask them some of these questions. Thinking about who are the hard to reach youth and why are they hard to reach? Thinking about what is actually in our circle of control and what is not inside our circle of control. Trying to identify the barriers that make it difficult to reach youth. And then ultimately, do the program stakeholders reflect the identities of our hard to reach youth? Is there representation in our program? So this set of questions is centered around our students, okay? And we can also think about questions that we would ask our staff. And so similarly, you can interview staff independently. You can provide them with a survey about how your program looks to them, and what best practices that they might be using in their time with the youth. What resources are they tapping into? And whenever possible, looking within your own organization to demonstrate support for those who are, you're trailblazing, you're trying to move change forward. And that is a journey done together. And so here's some staff-centered questions, things that you might be asking, not just yourself, but the staff directly. What is working? What isn't working? What have you tried recently that was successful? What are students saying? What can we do to remove those barriers that we see? And do youth feel seen and heard in the program? All really important questions. And like I said, not the end all be all of the questions, but this is a starting place to start to help you with that, figuring out what actually is possible. So now we have all this information, we've done the investigation, we've asked all these questions. What do we do now? So through all of this information gathering, we identify the themes, and then we begin to think about what are the possibilities around reaching, particularly the hard to reach youth, how to keep them engaged and keep them coming back to programs. And so we now take all this information to help build that vision for the future and develop what we are calling the possibility proposition, which directly links to the best practices that you've identified and that you've explored and the themes that you've discovered. So here's an example, right? Every activity at our program will use data to meet student needs, be hands-on and fun, so our students want to participate, and use evidence-based practices to ensure effective instruction. So this is the idea behind possibility propositions, and the handout that we will be providing to you walks you through all of these steps. Really, it's just taking the information that you can gather from your programs, using that to inform your vision for the future, right? That possibilities that you're being proposed. So that was possibility propositions. That's one tool that we'll be providing you today. The next tool that we'll be providing to you centers around building partnerships, but really that beginning phase of trying to identify partners, which really lives in the space of networking. And so to tap into that power of partnerships, networking is labor intensive, right? It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of planning. And it's just that first step to identifying and building partnerships. It can be intimidating. Networking can be hard. And so the steps that we'll talk about today are mapped out in a full networking how-to document that we'll share with you, along with some tools to help you as you embark on these networking opportunities to gather information and identify partners. And so in the information that we'll go through, we'll take a look at identifying those networking opportunities, how to build a plan, and then the information gathering and follow-up that needs to happen. And so some places that you might consider, we're saying out-of-the-box networking ideas, and this might be out of the box depending on where you are and what is available to you in your region, your space. And some of these might feel like, oh, well, I've already done that. But here's the thing. Everywhere is different, right? And you have so many different things going on. You may or may not have some of these opportunities just because of where you are. So here's a laundry list of a whole bunch of networking ideas for you. Checking out career fairs. They may feel like, oh, I'm going because I need to hire people, which might be true. However, it's a great networking opportunity, not just people coming to that booth that you're representing your organization at, but even just visiting a career fair and circling the room and going around to all the different booths and seeing who else is in that community, right? Community events are also great. So thinking about, vendors that might be at those events, you might be a vendor yourself, but going around and chatting up all of those other organizations that are present. Speed networking, kind of like speed dating, but it's for networking, right? The purpose is that we are making connections and building our network. If you just do some Googling, you might be able to find some speed networking events in your area. This looks like speed dating in that you are connecting with people very quickly and rotating through so that you connect with everyone. And then you can always go back and follow up, because part of this is also exchanging information, right? You get their information, they get your information. Who doesn't love swag? Good t-shirt, a water bottle. It's amazing what a logo can do to boost networking possibilities. So if your organization has some swag or some gear, wearing that out in your social settings, right? Maybe it's going to the gym and you're wearing the organizational t-shirt. Maybe you're going to a baseball game and here's the water bottle or the hat or, what have you. Representation for your organization through swag in your non-program hours is also a way to start building a network. Going out and working in the public. So going to co-working spaces, which became highly popular as we started to come out of the depths of the pandemic, and offices weren't all reopening necessarily. And so you might have office hours as part of your role in your program. Check out a co-working space and see about making some connections, whether that's, a co-working space or a cafe. Who doesn't love, getting through your emails at a Starbucks, right? Like, it is another way to network by going into these public places and being a face that's just around, wearing your swag, doing some work, whenever you are, obviously you're not in front of children in these moments, right? Seeking out sponsorships, thinking about companies that may seem unusual, and tapping into them for not just monetary donations, but looking for other things that maybe they can help with. Like, I know that there's lots of grocery stores that you can get like donations of snacks for programs. This is something that I did in the program that I ran. We hit up every grocery store in the vicinity and got donations. And if it wasn't actual like physical donations, it was a gift card. But connecting with those organizations, companies, businesses, local sports teams, funeral homes. I know that sounds crazy, because how could funeral homes, like, what's the mission alignment there with your program? But it is possible. There was the organization that I was running out of school time programs in, we had a member of the board who was a director of a funeral home. It is possible. There was because that personal interest, and it might seem odd, but it never hurts to ask, right? So thinking about places that maybe you wouldn't generally just go to right off the bat. Connecting with volunteer networks, great idea. And I mean this like beyond the AmeriCorps, thinking about your senior centers, thinking about other volunteer organizations. I think about there's a lot of churches that are definitely like into volunteerism within their communities. Even beyond the volunteer networks themselves, there's lots of corporations that offer opportunities for their staff to do volunteerism in their communities. And so this is yet another great way to start to build a network. Also thinking about colleges and universities where you have students who, particularly those involved with sororities or fraternities that are required to do volunteer hours. Another great way to start to build some connections and grow your network. Thinking about government events. even just like your small community with the holidays just passed, right? Going out to your local tree lighting and making yourself known while you're there and introducing yourself. All valid ideas to start to build your network. Thinking about who you're already connected with and what other connections you might be able to make as a result of that initial connection. And then, like, last but not least, if the opportunities don't seem to present themselves, create your own. Maybe get together with other similarly missioned organizations and have a networking night. These kind of opportunities you can go and find, or you can create yourselves, and there's no right or wrong answer. So we're going to dive into how do we actually like build this plan around networking so we can be very intentional and we can make sure that we're actually doing what we need to do to build this network, right? And so this looks like setting goals. Excuse me. So ask yourself, what are your goals of networking? Are you trying to deepen your connection with the community? Are you trying to bring awareness to your program? Are you hoping to identify potential volunteers or program partners or even donors, right? What are your goals behind networking? Then you can take some time to identify and choose the networks that you want to tap into first. Who are those groups of people that you want to connect with? Do they have values or a similar mission that align to your own? Create a list of that potential audience. And so that might include professional organizations, government agencies, volunteer programs. We talked about many of these already. Oh, don't forget your local Rotaries. All these are really good places to start to consider, where can I start networking? From there, once you've identified, okay, this is the place I'm going to go to first, excuse me, you will want to identify activities that you can engage in with whatever that network is. So, for example, we'll use Rotaries as the example. Rotaries meet pretty frequently. So, you'll want to identify their meetings and include that as part of the activities that you want to participate in. Rotaries also sometimes are membership based. And so you might have to like formally join that Rotary. But that's just an example of, a network and then the activities that follow. Excuse me. Okay, so now you've identified the activity. When you get that face-to-face moment and it's time for you to introduce yourself, you need to be able to sell who you are, the work you're doing, your program, the whole kit and caboodle, right? And so you need to spend some time before that practicing what we call an elevator pitch. As you've identified many of these activities and things that you want to do, you want to make sure that you're putting it on your calendar, you're cross-referencing your organizational calendar to make sure that there's no conflicts, there's not like an event or a big meeting or a program commitment. And if there is, how can you maybe send somebody in your stead, or can that event or commitment happen while you go do this networking opportunity? Looking at all those moving pieces, but putting it on the calendar and holding yourself accountable to your calendar can be really key here, right? And then do it. Go to the activity, go to the event, talk to people, pass out business cards, pass out swag if you've got extra swag to share, right? Collect business cards, asking people for their contact information. You want to get as much as you can so that you can circle back and have those conversations in the follow-up, right? So networking is never over. You go to the networking event, you've made these connections, that's not the end, right? Once you've made that contact, it's going to require some work and some maintenance to further identify the possibilities of working together or support for your work, and eventually the success of that, right? So you want to nurture that relationship, build it along the way, stay in touch with the contacts that you've made on a regular basis. Ask them if you can add them to your, if you have a newsletter that's for a larger pool of your stakeholders, that's not just like a family newsletter, right? Asking them, hey, can I send you information about our program? Those kinds of things are showing that you're being proactive and that you are interested in building that relationship. So we've got a plan, and this is all mapped out in the tool that we'll share with you. But that elevator pitch, that can be hard. I don't know about you. I don't necessarily always enjoy talking about myself. I know it might sound to the contrary today, but it can be really, really hard. And so when you're thinking about your elevator pitch, you need to think about whether you are pitching you or whether you're pitching your organization. Or are you pitching both? Depending on that network, depending on your goals and the things that you want to accomplish, it might be one or the other or both, and that's okay. But essentially, it's really just that 30-second sales pitch, right? We talk about it being an elevator pitch because you encounter somebody in an elevator and you start up a conversation with them, and in the short time from floor to floor, you can tell them this information about who you are and what you do. And so that includes for you, your name, your title, what you do, skills, strengths, personal philosophy, which you want to, the summation of your personal philosophy, and why you, right? If you're thinking about it from the organizational side, it sounds pretty similar. Insert your name, role, and organization name, the description of the work that you're doing, why it's unique and its impact on your community, and then why your organization. Again, this could get lengthy, but you want to try to keep it short and succinct. So here's an example for you. My name is Michael. Not really. And I am the program director at Sandy Beach Kids Club. We bring local children together every afternoon for a variety of social clubs to help them build their social skills and emotional wellness. We've seen tremendous reductions in our students' behavioral referrals and suspensions from their schools due to participating in our program. We're changing students' lives through tea time and tea time. And so we'll just put that on the screen for you so that you can see it, right? It does all the things. It has the name, it has the role and the organization. It has the impact of the work that we're doing. And there's even a little funny thing in there, right? Tea time and tea time. So you don't have to be funny in your elevator pitch. That is optional. But we want to know from you, have you built an elevator pitch? If not, we're going to take a moment right now. We've got a few minutes. Think about an elevator pitch, and we'll focus on you right now. You're taking some time to do some professional development for yourself today. So let's focus on you. Here's the formula: your name and title, what you do, your skills and strengths, your personal philosophy, and why you. So you can either drop that in the chat. It's a lot to type. And so if you don't feel like typing, you can let us know, and we would love to hear from you live. We can unmute and have you share. But I'll just give you another practice round while you type and think. And I'll tell you about me. My name is Brittany, and I am an education specialist. I develop and facilitate content for Foundations, Inc. I have been an educator for 7 years, and I am passionate about equitable access to opportunities. And I believe that every child deserves an education. And I think that I can make a change by offering professional development opportunities to good people like yourselves. There you go. Elevator pitch done. So who's out there typing away? Anybody want to unmute and share with us what your elevator pitch is? Okay, we have one here. And I'm going to, as this is being recorded, I'm only going to share first name, Oh, it went away. Where did it go? It was there, now it's gone. Interesting. Oh, but I'm also just catching up on the chat. Sorry to throw things back a few moments earlier, but we have somebody here suggesting that funeral homes can be a great resource for hand-me-down plants. Very cool. Elevator pitches are easier said than done in many cases, and it might take you some time to think through it. That's fine, totally fine. But if you are thinking about it and you want to share with us in the chat, let us know. We'd be happy to share for you your elevator pitch. But we really encourage you to spend some time developing this for yourself and for your program. And I'll also add that once you have developed an elevator pitch for your program, that's something that you should do as a team and everybody practice it together so that no matter who it is on your staff or who it is on your board of directors or who it is in that will be possibly sharing your program story with someone can very easily just be like, well, here is information about this program and why it's important to me, right? So, oh, wonderful. We have one. Thank you so much. Again, I'm just going to share the first name. We have, hi, my name is Ross. I am an after-school director at an elementary school. Our program offers snacks, homework assistance, enrichment programs, and most important of all, caring attention to the students in our community. Our students have a lot of high ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and every day I get to make a difference in the lives of my students. Would you like to join us in making a difference? You know, and I love what you did here at the end, Ross, about adding the question around, would you like to join us in making a difference? And so I don't want to say like word of caution. I can't think of a better way to describe it though. Just something to think about. This is a great opportunity to ask this question, but also consider in that moment, is it the right time to ask that question depending on what's happening in your situation, what the type of networking and the overall goal is. Oh, and we have another here. Thank you so much for sharing. So we have, hello, I'm Karen. I am a youth enrichment program director and have been for the last 25 plus years. My philosophy is that there is no bad child. Snaps. My superpower is connecting with children and listening to them so that they know that they are seen and heard. Every child has a voice, and it is our job to help them find their voice. Please come with us on this journey. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. And I love how personal it was that you're connecting, very much your personal values and beliefs behind the work that you're doing in that. So that's great. Thank you guys for sharing. Really appreciate it. And if you are still working on typing, just feel free to drop it in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. So we've talked about possibility propositions. We've talked about this networking to ultimately build partnerships. Now, our final little tool of the day is youth focus groups. So a focus group is a structured discussion around a specific topic. And so program leaders like yourselves can use focus groups to solicit feedback from multiple perspectives and identify insights into program design. The focus group process can help you gain in-depth insight from target student groups. And in this case, we're thinking about how can we make our programs so that students keep coming back, that it's meeting their, not just their needs, but also the things that they want. And so this is creating opportunities for them to share their voice and ultimately fuel change within your program. Focus groups are great. They're a wonderful way to collect a lot of narrative data on your program from, in this case, we're talking about students. But it also can help guide your focus on students' experiences in the program. So this tool lists out many of the steps. We've used an analogy of a swimmer on a swim team to help you visualize and execute the various steps that you'll need to take whenever implementing a youth focus group. And again, we'll be dropping those tools in the chat for you. So the first thing is thinking about facilitation of said focus group. There's a couple parts that you want to make sure that you're including in your focus group. A welcome. And so this is where the facilitator and other staff members that might be assisting in the focus group, they're going to welcome the students upon their arrival, going to invite them to place their name if they need like name badges because maybe they don't know everybody. Invite them to, if you provide a snack for them during this time, right? Invite them to participate in some of that, whatever you've got planned, right? Creating that welcoming environment for the focus group before you actually dive into the actual content of the meeting. Once you've done that, you'll take some time to share with the whole group, establish norms, and sharing that purpose and whatever the procedure for your day will be. So norms are those expectations of how everybody will engage. And so we'll show here for you on the screen some examples of norms. And so, excuse me, there are no wrong answers. That's an important norm. This is a safe place where you can share your thoughts freely. That is an important norm. Non-judgmental zone. Listeners will openly hear what the speaker is saying and offer responses respectfully. I could say it's an important norm after all of these, right? Speaking stick. You might want to implement some kind of talking piece or speaking stick to facilitate the conversation. So essentially, if you haven't heard of this before, it can be a ball, a stick, of whatever, some kind of smaller tangible item. And he who has that item is the one who gets to share. And I've seen it work really great with groups of students because especially if this is something that you've like well established, it kind of just takes care of itself and the kids pass it to each other and are very respectful of listening to that person when they have the turn to talk. This might be necessary depending on the nature of the conversation that you are hoping to have, but confidentiality, that anything that anybody says in that space is in that space and it's not necessarily going to be repeated beyond that space. So these are just some sample norms. You can develop ones that meet your needs. You can use these, whatever suits you best. So then after that, we'll go back to our list here of things to include in your focus group. We've done all of the opening business, so to speak. Now it's time to break that ice, right? To warm things up a little bit. And it's not absolutely required that you do this, but it's really nice and it can get kids more comfortable with the setting and even kind of build up the energy because on the outside, the focus group probably doesn't necessarily sound like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have such a fun time. But this is a way for you to make it that fun time for the students, right? It's work, but it's play. So after our warm-up and our icebreaker, this is where we can dive into questions. And it's very important that whenever we're doing questioning in the focus group that we're thinking about open-ended questions. You want specifics and relevancy, but you don't want it to be like a yes/no question, right? You need more details. The whole point of this is gathering information from the students directly to help inform the development or changes of your program. And so asking open-ended questions is very important. Doing some engaging activities, this is kind of optional, but I think that it can add a lot of value to the focus group because it creates, excuse me, an opportunity for those participating to address open-ended questions in a different way. And we'll go through some examples of activities that you might include that will yield results for the focus group. And then finally, the closing of the focus group, right? You do need to wrap things up. And so doing some closing questions, such as, again, thinking open-ended here, right? Is there anything else that you would like to share today? Asking them about their experience participating in the focus group. Consider doing an actual like evaluation as part of the focus group at the end for them to share their experiences. Um, Making sure that you're also showing gratitude and appreciation for their participation. And if possible, depending again on the nature of your program and the focus group and your whole goal, maybe you've also decided to offer some kind of incentive as a result of them participating in the focus group. And then always, always, always offering the opportunity for them to come to you privately, one-on-one, to have any other information that they want to share. And so, excuse me. And so when we think about the questions that we want to ask in the focus group, here are some examples. These are not necessarily all the questions that you might want to ask. You might want to do some, not at all, or add your own. But thinking about these open-ended questions about safety and representation and enjoyment in the program, the skills that students have gained while participating in the program. What activities do they like? What have they not liked? All of these sample questions are included in the tool that it will be provided to you. But let's just say, even though you've asked an open-ended question, maybe they didn't give you an answer that was expansive. You might need to do some follow-up. And so you could always say things after their answer, like, tell me more about that. Can you elaborate on that for me? Or ask for an example, asking them to explain what it is that they mean, or even opening it up to the full group to ask, does anybody feel differently? These are great ways to take that maybe one word answer that was not what you were hoping for, and start to get them to maybe open up a little bit more so that you can get more information around that. But aside from just asking questions, which is part of the focus group experience, we can use different activities to kind of facilitate this conversation and pose these questions in new ways. And this might be something that you try because of the age group that you work with, or because you want to make sure that it's like a highly engaging focus group. But here are 4 different activity ideas, all of which are mapped out for you in the toolkit we will provide. And I love these. So rating, this activity is when you have, you post different things from your program, different activities that you do in your program, maybe on some chart paper or poster board, and then you provide students with Post-it notes, and you ask them to provide a rating on all those different activities. And so it can be like a 5-star rating system. You can do a numeric system, A, B, C, whatever you want to choose. But it gives the opportunity for students to go around and consider all of the things that they experience in your program and give them an actual rating. And then we have Magic Potion and Program Planet. So these are, it's very, very similar, and you can do these to get kids start thinking about their dreams for the program, right? So what this is whenever you have students describe their ideal program and what it could look like compared to the existing program that they're part of. And so Magic Potion is where you ask them to create a recipe for their ideal program, right? Create that magic potion and list out all the, quote, ingredients that they might need for said program. And then the planet variation on that is to ask them to create the universe around the program, and what is the landscape of the program and the population of the program and the language, like all of the things to build a program planet. This can be really, really fun, especially for like some younger age students that might not, they'll need some other guidance aside from just asking questions, right? Getting them to be creative and brainstorm in that way. Not to say that that's not great for older kids too, it definitely is. But those are fun options. And then our last one is called Crazy Eights. And this is a great visual exercise. And it's where students are asked to create solutions to problems that they see in the program. So you can have students identify an issue, or you can provide the issue that you've identified because you've done all the work of possibility propositions, and have them work either individually or in small groups to propose solutions to said problem. And materials for this are pretty easy. Just, some paper that has a grid on it, 8 boxes or so. And each box, they have to draw a different solution to that same problem, and give them some time to work on that and even talk about it together. These are just 4 very quick, easy activities. There's so many other things that you could do to incorporate into the focus group, but hopefully you're starting to see that, oh, this could be another way of engaging a youth focus group other than just, I'm just going to sit down and ask questions. It's all about intentionality and engagement. And so we've done all this work with the focus group. We've asked all the questions. We've done all the things. What do we need to do at the end of that to make sure that we are able to use the information to move our programs forward? And so after the focus group, you can take some time to look through your notes, to flesh those out, looking for and analyzing those themes again, where the common statements from the students, common concerns, common likes, dislikes, and from there identify the key priorities that you want to address, because you can't fix everything all at once. You need to start somewhere. So creating a prioritization of those identified themes is going to be important. From there, you can develop a plan to approach any one of those priorities that you might have. So the focus group, even after all of this, right, you can always revisit it. Say you've tackled, here's that priority you've identified, and you've made a plan, and you're working on the plan, and you're doing the thing. A couple months down the road, you can revisit that focus group to say, hey, here is the work that we've been doing, the changes that we've made, and asking for those students to reflect and provide feedback on those changes, on those adjustments. Is it meeting their needs more so than it was before? And so I would encourage you to think about focus groups not just as a singular moment where you are trying to get some information from students about what they hope and dream from your program, but that really it's part of a bigger process and conversation. We talk all the time about meeting those student needs. We know that needs change. We know that with each passing year, there's new interests, there's new things that students are experiencing. And so revisiting these on a recurring basis to make sure that we're staying relevant and meeting the students' needs and wants now in the moment is key. And so we'll drop for you those tools in the chat. They are PDFs that if you haven't seen them in the chat, we'll make sure that you get those as we follow up. But we want to hear from you here in these last few moments that we have today. Thinking about the 3 kind of tools, 3 subjects for our focus today. The possibility propositions, right? The dreams and desired future of our program, the partnership power and the networking to get us there, and the youth focus group. We want to hear from you, and feel free to just drop it in the chat about which one of these tools or areas that you are interested in jumping in on as we have we've provided you with these tools. What are you interested in using first? So go ahead, drop it in the chat. Let us know where your interests lie. We are so grateful to have had the opportunity to pull together these resources for you. And so We'd love for you to utilize them. We'd love to get your feedback. If you try using it, let us know how it went. Like, we'd love to hear that. Oh, great. Thank you. I see somebody is interested in doing that youth focus group. Absolutely. Wonderful. We're glad to hear it. And we want to hear from you after the fact. How did it go? Did it did you find the tool useful? Did it help you in your process? Um, Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. These have hopefully been a useful conversation today for you. I'm going to hand things back over to Chaz to wrap things up for us today.
Thank you. So I'd just like to take a moment to thank Brittany again for all this amazing information for us. Incredible presentation and great information and amazing tools. So really hope that you find a way to use each one of these tools and, help build an engaging program. So just for a moment, please go ahead and fill out the feedback survey that we're dropping in the chat here. Just a brief survey about the session, letting us know how we did. Your feedback is very important to us. We value it, and our aim is to meet your needs. So we need that feedback. So yes, there will be a recording of this on our site, and also a certificate of attendance will be sent to anybody who's attended live within a week. I'll go ahead and drop the link to the site again there for you. And just as a reminder, BSH is coming up, so we'd all love to see you there as well. And we'll go ahead and drop all of socials here for you. And once again, thank you so much for your attendance here, and I hope you have a wonderful day.